Las Vegas after the Nevada legislature gave final approval to public funding for a portion of a proposed $1.5 billion stadium with a retractable roof. Governor still needs to sign the deal. Major League Baseball owners must approve the A's move to the Vegas Strip, but both are expected. White Sox righty Mike Clevenger left last night's start with right bicep soreness. He'll be reevaluated today.
The Blitz has been called. Welcome to the Recruiting Blitz with D Squared.
It is time to share your decision. Where are you headed to school?
Ooh, Alabama gets the number one safety in the country. What was it about Alabama?
LSU Tigers, number one. Go Tigers.
And the next 4 years, I'm going to Denver University.
Call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline, 256-576-4977. Now, here's D Squared.
Welcome, everyone, to this Thursday edition of the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. I am D Squared. We're going to have a great Thursday show for you. Going to have a first-time guest on the Blitz Sports Radio, and that will be, at least on the Recruiting Blitz side, Austin Hannon, beat writer for Bama Central, newly hired by them, does a great job, followed this baseball program throughout their journey, throughout the postseason, was also at Winston-Salem for the end in the Super Regionals, and of course was front and center with the hire of Rob Vaughn. Is the new era of Alabama baseball is going to continue. Already a lot of activity on that side, as last night in the transfer portal. And if you've been paying close attention, I've had my ear to the ground, not a complete shock. Bryce Eblin into the transfer portal. He was, of course, a 3-year letterman, mostly a defensive replacement this year, did start some games at second base and at third, but a guy from Indiana who never, was consistent, good player, but he's gone into the transfer portal. And then the freshman All-American Colby Shelton from Tampa, Florida, 25 home runs, a freshman school record, nearly a 300 batting average, over 50 RBIs, and he is into the transfer portal as he's looking more than likely to leave the University of Alabama. That's the environment we're in now, is a lot of guys looking for NIL payouts, represented by agents who have their hands out as well. It's unfortunate. It's an unfortunate part of the business. It's why they're trying to get NIL regulated, and why you saw Nick Saban and Greg Sankey and so many formidable names in the SEC going to Congress last week to meet with them. And Joe Manchin, Tommy Tuberville, senator from the University of Alabama, and of course Joe Manchin, the governor of West Virginia, trying to get things changed. Because, again, this is not what NIL was supposed to be. It was supposed to be a situation with a guy like Colby Shelton. He signs with Alabama. He has a great year, can now have some business opportunities come his way and earn some money for name, image, and likeness. But instead now it's turned out to just basically pay for play like professional athletics, where, you see LSU poaching Paul Skeens from the Air Force Academy, getting Tommy White from NC State, and both those guys had amazing years and have helped LSU reach the College World Series. And to their credit, they've stepped up. Alabama's obviously going to have to step up their commitment to the program financially to give themselves and the coaching staff more resources and step up their NIL game. But the beauty of it is Alabama lost, their third baseman last year into the transfer portal after Zane Denton had played 3 years at Alabama. He's had a huge impact at Tennessee, helped them reach Omaha, but Colby Shelton, quite frankly, was better than Zane Denton statistically this year, and we'll see what happens if Shelton ultimately does leave Alabama and go to another school. Can Alabama replace him? Well, what's Rob Vaughn and Jason Jackson going to do as far as in the transfer portal themselves? Because as we've said before, the portal can taketh away, but it can giveth. So this Alabama roster is going to look very interesting. We're going to talk to Austin Hannon about that. It's going to be a much different team. We knew there was a lot of veterans on this ball club this year that were going to be out of eligibility, and some like Andrew Pinckney were going to have a chance to be drafted and move on. Even a guy like Hunter Furtado, who threw really well down the stretch. So we will see, no doubt about it. It's going to be a very interesting offseason for the Alabama baseball program, and we look forward to talking to Austin about that and about the schedule release for 2024 for football in Alabama, with a very difficult schedule, especially within the SEC, and also going to Wisconsin in 2024. So it should be some outstanding conversation, no doubt about that. We're also going to bring you Rob Vaughn's press conference. Weren't able to do that yesterday as we talked a lot of Tennessee going to the College World Series and LSU. We wanted to connect with Austin after he had a chance to, have a sit down with Rob Vaughn and talk to the new coach of Alabama baseball. So he got some outstanding insight into that. And so we look forward certainly to being able to pick Austin's brain, get his thoughts on this new baseball coach that's come to the University of Alabama, who built Maryland into the best program in the Big Ten. And, I'm sure some people will have questions because he doesn't have ties to the SEC, but he didn't have ties to the East Coast as a Texas native and a guy that played in the Big 12 at K-State when he came to Maryland as an assistant and had worked his way up to head coach and still was able to build them into a power. Known as an offensive guy, he should be complement Jason Jackson perfectly. I think keeping Jason Jackson is still going to be a boon for Alabama. He knows how to recruit in the SEC. He is, of course, beloved by a lot of the returning players on the roster. I still think several key pieces are going to return for Alabama, and he'll be key in helping Rob Vaughn put together this roster and potentially get some additions out of the transfer portal and keep this recruiting class, which looks to be very, very solid. I think it was considered top 10 in the country, intact. Now, will they lose some pieces of it to the draft? Potentially, yes. Also, some of their current players, like we already mentioned, Andrew Pinckney, who had an outstanding career at Alabama following his redshirt junior year where he hit 18 home runs for the Tide and is a five-tool player. I would imagine he would have a very good chance at moving on in Major League draft. And so we will see, no doubt about it. But certainly the University of Alabama, I think, is I don't think they could have done any better. Greg Byrne handled this search extremely well. We've already had Tony Tsoukalos on the show, who broke that story about a week ago that Rob Vaughn was indeed the front runner. He's 35 years old, a lot of youth and enthusiasm, and so we're definitely looking forward to his impact on Alabama baseball going forward, no question about it. And also, we are going to, talk about, the future as far as staff, what Austin thinks could happen there besides Jason Jackson. Certainly, Rob Vaughn mentioned it in his press conference that he's going to put together a very good staff. Could he retain some other pieces of that staff, like a Hunter Morris, who's from here in Grissom High School and done a great job as Alabama's hitting coach, or is he going to bring some guys with him? So a lot to get to and talk about, no doubt about it. But there's also what we wanted you to do as well is don't forget to download our app, our Blitz Sports Radio app at the Google Store, the Apple Store. Please do that. We've been growing since late July. We've got a lot of stuff going on. You can hear this show each Monday through Friday from 9 to 10 a.m., the Recruiting Blitz. And then you can hear the Afternoon Blitz from 2 to 4 with the Bandyman, Bailey Lowry, and Captain Cool John Abraham. So please continue to support us by downloading our app. And, of course, our sister station, the home of Crimson Tide Athletics, where you heard this great Alabama baseball postseason run. Please download our 97.7 The Zone app if you have not yet. We would really appreciate that. And continue to support our sponsor. We wouldn't be here without Alumni Hall. They are, of course, at the Bridge Street Town Center for many years, which is just down from the Apple Store. Now they have moved down and they are next to Belk, and that will be temporary. By early August, they're going to move into their new digs next to the Buckle. It will be their biggest square footage store yet, and they will add Tennessee to the repertoire. But right now, they can fill any of your Alabama or your Auburn needs. And, of course, you got Father's Day coming up Sunday. You've got, of course, birthdays, graduations, and they can take care of all your needs. And they also have alumnihall.com. Alumnihall.com is an outstanding website where you can join their Hall Rewards program. If you do that, for every $150 you spend, you get 10 free dollars, and you can stack those. I certainly have done that. Also, You can, if you want to order something from their online store, if you need something besides Alabama and Auburn or even Tennessee, they have so many other schools in their network, and you can order that. And their shipping is very, very affordable, $10 for UPS or $6 for economy shipping. And then, of course, if you spend $100, the shipping is free. And if you join their email list, they will send you certainly flash sale emails and follow their social media as well. Andy and the group, they do a great job at the Huntsville store. They're also hiring if you need that summer job. So please continue to support Alumni Hall and alumnihall.com. We certainly appreciate them for being a part of the Blitz Sports Radio. And we're looking forward to Austin Hannon joining us so we can talk some Alabama baseball. But before that, we wanted to bring you the press conference for Rob Vaughn, who was introduced this past Tuesday at the University of Alabama. And you can hear from one of the best young college baseball coaches in the country as he met the media and talked about why he chose the University of Alabama and, of course, the retention of J.J. Jackson. Still an exciting time for Alabama baseball, and we wanted to bring you that press conference right here before we go on a break here and bring Austin Hannon into the conversation on this Thursday edition of the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio.
Welcome. My name is Chris Stewart. It's an honor to have all of you here today for a very, very special day in the life of our university, our athletic department, and specifically for our baseball program. We will get our program started as we welcome our Director of Athletics, Greg Byrne.
Thank you, Chris. Good to see everybody out here. Obviously, we've been had a very special year as we finished our baseball season, and a challenging year at the same time. But today's an exciting day for Alabama athletics as we welcome Rob Vaughn as our new head men's baseball coach. As always, thanks, Dr. Bell, for all of your support that you give us. We have great alignment at the University of Alabama with our trustees, and Karen Brooks is here as well. We appreciate you being here today, Karen. And then also our Chancellor of F. St. John and all of our trustees. As I mentioned, a lot has happened with our program over the last 6 weeks, but I'm so incredibly proud of the way our team finished out this season. I sent a tweet out the other day. I've been around this a long time. It's as fine a group of young men as I've been around from a baseball program, and everybody around the program, and even our conversations already with Coach Vaughn, he says he could sense the same thing. Want to thank JJ. Is JJ here today? There you are right there. That man stepped up and led. And the entire staff, and that's him right there. But he was a great leader through all of this. He and the staff did a wonderful job, and we very much appreciate him. Believe so much in JJ, and Coach Vaughn and I talked that we've elevated him to associate head coach, and we've also offered him a 2-year contract to stay here at the University of Alabama. Had a lot of conversations as we went through this process. We vetted 27 coaches throughout the country. So we looked across the country. I've stayed focused on college baseball, but we had a lot of really good interest in the job. And Rob's name continued to rise up to the top time and time again. He did an incredible job at the University of Maryland. They won back-to-back regular season Big Ten titles in 22 and 23. He was back-to-back Big Ten Coach of the Year. They won their first conference championship this year, and he was part of the 3 winningest seasons in Maryland history. They also set many other records under his watch. The impressive accolades on the field, and just as impressed with his relationships off the field and the way he cares about the overall experience and development of the student athletes. When I talked to our current team here at Alabama, one of the things that they said was they wanted someone who cared about them just as much as a person as they do a baseball player. It became very apparent right away that's Rob Vaughn. I've said this before, one of the tricks that I came up with a while back in coaching search is to call former student athletes of the candidate. And all we say is, hey, we're doing some research on coaches, and one of your coaches is somebody we want to look into. And we talked to people who played a lot, some who played some, and some who never got off the bench. And so is actually the most remarkable feedback I've gotten in all my times of doing that. I'm going to read some of them. Here's the question. Do you feel like you developed and achieved your full potential under Coach Vaughn? One of the answers, honestly, better than I could ever have been. He did a great job always making sure you didn't get too down on yourself, which is easy to do when you get to this level. He always did such an amazing job of not letting the lows be too low or the highs be too high. Another answer, absolutely. Coach is not there simply to develop you as a baseball player. You go to him about anything off the field. Another question, tell me about your overall experience playing for Coach Vaughn. Answer, he's been able to create an amazing culture. With Vaughn, it's all about respect across the board. He's going to respect you as a person first, and you can feel the investment he's making in you. It doesn't matter if you're the starting pitcher or a pinch runner. Everyone is part of the team and is treated as such. Another question, did Coach Vaughn care about you personally and academically? Answer, 100%. He was always asking about us personally, how our family was, how school was going, etc. He understood that baseball wasn't going to be a lifelong career for most of us. He stressed the importance of making sure we had plans for life after baseball. Another question. Given the chance to go back, why would you make the same, or would you make the same decision and why to go play for Coach Vaughn? Answer, one of them, 100% would make the same decision. Never been out east before he went to Maryland and was intimidated originally, but they made it a welcoming environment. I cherish all the memories and appreciate the coach still stays in touch with players after graduation. Another response, without a doubt, he's like family to me at this point. I invited him to my wedding. He called me when we found out we were having our first child. He's about as true and genuine a person as you'll ever meet. We're thrilled to welcome Rob, his wife Kaylee, sons Wyatt and Bo, we heard from Bo a minute ago, as well as Rob's parents Eddie, right over here, and Fennell, here today as we introduce Rob as the next head coach of Alabama baseball. Yeah, that's right. There we go. Dr. Bell, come on, real quick.
Wow, I didn't think I was going to get emotional before we started right there. Like Greg did when he started this thing out, I want to start by thanking everybody involved in this process, starting with Greg. From our first conversation, it was very clear the type of person he was. I want to thank his wife, Regina, for everything she's done for my family and how she's been through this process. Obviously, President Bell, he's holding Bo. I walk in a minute ago, and he's holding my 8 and 9-month-old right there, so he's already starting the babysitting duty, so that's fantastic. And then, obviously, Chancellor St. John and the Board of Trustees, just very thankful for this opportunity to be standing up here today. You know, you'll hear this from me a lot, is I am a people person. I love people. I love relationships. I love building those relationships. You know, my dad's in the front row right here. I can't even begin to express what he's meant to me. He showed me from a very young age what hard work looks like. He showed me after 53 years of working in the oil field and doing different things, what it means to sacrifice for your family and to work hard. And for that, I'm extremely grateful. My mom right next to him. Mom and I have spent a lot of time together for my whole life. Dad worked 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off up in Alaska. So he would be at home in Texas with us for a couple weeks, then would go home. So what that meant is me and Mom went through a lot of stuff together, good, bad, or indifferent. And you talk about somebody that has sacrificed for her family, is probably more competitive than anybody sitting in this room, myself included. I saw her this last weekend at Wyatt's little baseball game. He was in the championship game, and I saw her getting very frustrated at the other coach because he wasn't following the rules properly. So very competitive, and I owe who I am to her. And then obviously my wife, Kaylee, sitting here in front of us. You can't do what we do without an unbelievable support system. Kaylee grew up on a small dairy farm in southeast Kansas, and I remember calling her mom to tell her, hey, I'm taking your little girl and we're going halfway across the country. We've never been to the East Coast before, but we're going to figure it out. And for her to pick up, move, to support me through the ups and downs of coaching, through, man, the championships that Greg alluded to earlier, but also some really tough times, because that comes with the business. And Her support is something that I just could not do what I do without her. And then I've got my two guys, my right-hand man, Wyatt. He's already decked out in gear. He's excited. And the little Bo, who I'm sure you guys will see crawling around and all over the place, but very thankful for them. And then, you know, there's one person that's not here with us today. That when this happened was one of the first people I thought of outside of my family. And that's Kaylee's mom, Cindy. She has supported me through ups and downs of coaching. She is the biggest fan. We had all of Iola, Kansas decked out in Maryland baseball gear for a couple years. We lost Cindy last summer, and that's been a trying time for my family and I, but I know she's looking at us right now, very proud, very excited. You know, as we look back, I'm nothing without the opportunity I had at Maryland. You know, I was 29 years old, probably all ways, shapes, and form was not prepared to be a head coach at the age of 29. And Kevin Anderson, the then AD at the time, handed me the keys to that program. Damon Evans, AD currently, trusted me with that program through some ups and downs. We were bad year one. I promise we're going to try to not be 24-30 our first year, like we were my first year there. But we went through some ups and downs, and I had the support of the administration. I had the support of players. And that really warms my heart hearing my former guys talk about me like that, because I think it's one thing us as coaches really strive to do. We strive to develop relationships. You strive to build those things with those people, but you don't know if it lands all the time. You know, I've got kids that are working in real estate. I've got kids playing in the major leagues, and I've got a kid that's an Army Ranger now serving his country and doing some pretty special things. And so to hear that and to see kind of what they've become, I owe everything I am to my former players, and the ability of me standing up here right now is nothing without those guys. I owe my coaches. Brad Hill, former head coach at Kansas State University, just recently got the job at Emporia State out in Kansas. Brad Hill gave me my first job in coaching. I was out playing professional baseball, knew I kind of wanted to get out of that. Kaylee and I were getting married, and wanted to kind of step into that next role. He gave me my first opportunity, and we never really looked back from there. A guy named Andy Sawyers. Andy Sawyers is the head coach at Southeast Missouri State. Andy is the reason I am in coaching. I was an engineering student. I was studying mechanical engineering. Shoot, I was in a wind turbine class my senior year, wanting nothing to do with wind turbines or anything, and called Coach Sawyers afterwards. I'm like, Coach, man, I want to do what you do. He was a guy that had built basically trust in us. He believed in us. Was one of the first coaches I ever had that came up and said, you can be more than you think you're capable of. He challenged me. He taught me what it looked like to be a man, and he taught me how to grow and to push myself beyond what I was comfortable with, and I owe everything in my career to him. And finally, John Sheff. John Sheff gave me my first break. I was at Kansas State as a volunteer assistant coach, getting ready to go to Pratt Community College right outside of Wichita to become their hitting coach, and I got a call from Coach Sheff. He said, Rob, I want to fly you and Kaylee out to Maryland and check things out. I said, hang on, Coach, one of two things. I said, number one, are you offering me the job, or am I interviewing? And if I'm interviewing, I'll be on a plane tomorrow. We'll come out. We'll check things out. He's like, no, the job's yours. I just want to make sure you and Kaylee are good with this. I was like, Coach, say no more. I guarantee you whatever's in Maryland is better than what's in Pratt, Kansas. I'll be in my truck, and I'll be there tomorrow. So Coach Shepp believed in me. I was 25. I had never recruited before. I had never done that, and he made me the recruiting coordinator in the ACC, and got a chance to start building what we did over the last 11 years there. So very, very grateful for the people that have done that. As this process unfolded, we started having a lot of conversations, you know, and very honestly, one of the people I'm the biggest fan of in this room, and I know Greg already alluded to him, is JJ and what he did. The biggest thing that drew me to Alabama, outside of the prestige, outside of all those things, is the people. It started with Greg from that first conversation. I was in my basement. I walk upstairs afterwards. She's like, hey, how did it go? I'm like, gosh, if I didn't have interest then, I certainly do now, because that was an unbelievable conversation. And then I start watching the 2023 team. I start watching how they faced adversity, and remember that Friday night against Vanderbilt, and not thinking that team had a chance to come out and compete at a high level. And good gracious, not only did they do that, they went on a magical run and made it a heck of a ride. I was convinced they were going to Omaha. I was convinced we were going to have to wait another couple weeks to have this conversation, and I would have been really happy for that. But what a special group of young men, what a special group of coaches to lead them through a very challenging time. So very, very, very thankful to them and excited about them. You know, as I look at Alabama, you think, why Alabama? Well, obviously you have the easy stuff. You have the SEC, and obviously this is the most competitive brand of baseball there is. You know, this is something as a young kid you always aspire to play in. As a young coach, you always aspire to coach in. And to have the opportunity to stand here to be a part of this and to get to coach these young people moving forward is something that we are so excited about. We understand what comes with that. There's pressures. There's a lot of expectation, especially based on what the 2023 team just did. But that's what we want. That's what we're built for, and we want guys to understand that and be able to go in that. I look at the tradition here in the former coaches, Coach Sewell, Coach Schollenberger, Coach Wells, and obviously JJ and what he's provided. Just an unbelievable group of that. And you start looking at it, and I hear people say all the time, here's the advantages. Here's what's great about this place. Here's what's not great. You can't win here. You can't do this. You can't do that. But I look at a couple things. Number one, 16 first-team All-Americans. That'll play. 164 draft picks and 69 big leaguers. You can do it here. You start looking at it, 2,700 wins, 14 SEC championships, 7 SEC tournament titles, and the list goes on of what this program is capable of. And I'm excited to roll up my sleeves and get to work. This is the part that is exciting. There's a lot of excitement around your first few days on campus. But I've got the opportunity to spend the last day and a half, about the last 20 hours, around the young people from the 2023 team, around JJ and the rest of the coaching staff, and just getting to be a fly on the wall and listen to the way they communicate. And as you do that, it becomes very, very evident, very clear how they were able to do what they did. And I'm so proud to get to be a small part of that. I look around the other teams here. I look at the other coaching staffs here and see what they do. Obviously, my wife laughs at me. I got to meet Coach Saban yesterday. I almost passed out in there. That was one of the more intimidating things I've ever been a part of. But what a special thing here. You have the best coach of all time right down the street from us right here. Obviously watching Coach Oates and what he's developed on the basketball court and seeing how they've done that. Shoot, from afar, we followed from Maryland and we've watched those things and we've seen the way he's developed that and how special of an organization he has. Coach Murphy, elite level softball coach, good gracious, the best, if not one of the best softball coaches in the entire country. So you start to stack that up and say, why Maryland? Holy cow, or why, there you go, why Maryland? There's my first thing for you right here. My first gap for you as a Alabama head coach here. But why Alabama? You look at that, you see elite level coaches. You see the ability to win. You see the ability for these young people to get drafted and be everything that they want to be a part of. That's why my family's here. That's why we're here, and that's why we're so excited to be a part of this family. As we look at this, I want to engage the community. I love people. I got to watch how you guys packed that stadium this postseason. That was electric. I remember I came down with my team in 2016. I was an assistant coach at the University of Maryland. We opened up the new stadium in 2016. And a funny story, my wife was with us with her mom, Cindy. Wyatt was in her belly. The first time she felt Wyatt kick was sitting in the stadium over here at the Joe, getting to see that. So that was a little bit of a foreshadowing that one day this is where he wanted to be. So pretty exciting to have that. But I want to continue to build on what this group has done so far. They've laid the foundation of what it looks like to be successful. They've laid the foundation of the expectation of everybody that walks through these doors. And it's our job as a coaching staff to build on that, to not recreate, to look at the culture and say, hey, what's working? Because you don't do what those group of people just did without a strong culture, because culture matters. Culture matters when things aren't going well. And that group went through the fire, came out the other end, and set records and rewrote the history book at Alabama. And that's exciting. I want them to be able to bring their kids back 20 years from now, after we've knocked down the gates of Omaha again, after we've done some of those things, and say, yeah, that started with my group. That started with my group of people, and that's what I want for these guys. I want our program to be known about two things. The two most important things for me is culture and development. Culture and development, it's what we're all about. It's what I care about as a coach. This sounds super cliche to everybody involved, but my goal is that this group of people that I get to coach and we get to work alongside one day finish their time here and are equipped to be unbelievable dads one day, unbelievable husbands one day, and unbelievable leaders. because this isn't popular, but I will tell everybody, this world doesn't need another shortstop. Don't worry, I will find good shortstops, and we will have those here. But this world's going to keep spinning without it. But what we desperately, desperately need is men and women that know how to lead, that lead their families, that are people of character, that know how to lead communities. That's desperately what they need, and that's what our program is going to be built on. That's what we're going to be all about. We're going to be about building those things. When we look at recruiting, you know, the obvious question is, you know, I'm a Texas guy. I grew up in Houston, Texas. I've spent my last 11 years out in Maryland. I haven't recruited the state of Alabama. We don't usually get kids to come north. That's a little bit of a challenge out there. So we're going to just jump into building relationships. Why having a guy like JJ here is so incredibly valuable to what we're doing, because we're going to build relationships. We're going to grow these things. We are going to recruit guys that it matters to wear the Alabama logo on their chest. That's one thing that's really important to me. And it was very easy sitting in those exit meetings. There's some guys on that team that, goodness gracious, man, it means something to them. And when it means something like that, they're willing to run through a brick wall for you. And we're going to have guys in our program that matters to, and that they really care about that. But at the same time, Alabama's a very national brand. Shoot, I'm up there recruiting guys up in Pennsylvania. Luke Holman, prime example, recruiting guys up in Pennsylvania, and you see Alabama rolling around up there. Hey, who you talking to? Oh, we're talking to Alabama. I'm like, hey, guys, just stay in your neck of the woods down there so I can recruit these guys up here. But we're going to recruit nationally. We're going to find the players that want to be a part of this team, that want to be a part of this culture, that want to get an elite level education and grow to be the best people they can be. So for me, as we evaluate things, as we evaluate players, I say this all the time, and this is what I'll say to you guys as we start to land the plane here a little bit. I don't need to sell Alabama. I don't. We as a staff are going to tell you this is who we are. This is what we care about. This is how we're going to coach you. This is how we're going to make you the best version of who you can be. And from there, I believe in what's called the law of attraction. Like-minded people are drawn to like-minded people. And I'm excited to get started. I'm excited to roll our sleeves up and work. Because the beauty of this thing is that cupboard's not bare, I can tell you that. There's some really talented players on this roster. There's some really talented players coming in. And I'm just excited to get to know them. I'm excited to come alongside them. And I'm excited to put a staff together that's going to coach them to be the best version of who they can be. So as we wrap this thing up, I'm very, very excited to be here. My wife is thrilled to be here. Wyatt is more stoked than anybody. We are excited as a family to make Tuscaloosa home. And I think that's one thing that we're really excited about. This program has laid the foundation. Now it's time for us to knock down the gates of Omaha, and we're going to do that here real soon. So thank you, and I've been waiting to say this all day, but roll Tide.
And that was the introductory press conference for Rob Vaughn, who has now come over from the University of Maryland and will be the baseball coach, the 33rd in the history of the University of Alabama. We're going to go on a break here on this Thursday edition of the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio, and we're going to welcome Austin Hannon into the conversation. He just had one in depth with Rob Vaughn, and we'll talk about it next. Stay with us here on the Recruiting Blitz with D Squared.
This is Wes Neighbors sitting here with Philip Love of not only Eagle Installation, now he represents Eagle Companies. Eagle through the years have added several companies to help individuals or builders through their construction renovation process. Eagle is known to represent quality, efficiency, and professionalism. Philip, I know you do insulation, but do you do masonry?
We do.
Do you do grading, erosion control, and dirt hauled off?
We do.
Do you do afterpaint, which includes shower doors, mirrors, shelving blinds, and bath hardware?
Yes, we do, Wes.
Do you do landscaping and irrigation?
Yes, we do.
So basically, Eagle can help you all along your process of building your house or doing renovations. So do you do plumbing?
We do not, Wes, but we can find somebody to do it.
Just give them time. They'll be there. Anyway, call Eagle Insulation at
256-755-1556.
Eagle saves you time. Eagle saves you money. Call Eagle today.
Thanks, Wes.
You want the right specialist for your recovery. At SportsMed Orthopedic Surgery and Spine Center, we understand every body is different. Your muscles and bones are unique, as is your body. Our SportsMed specialists offer innovative treatments and minimally invasive procedures, allowing you to quickly return to the life you love. Locations in Huntsville, Madison, Athens, and Decatur, and on the web at sportsmedalabama.com. Improving performance, improving lives.
Tom Abraham here from my friend Brian Hamaker and his team at North Alabama Mortgage. Look, buying a home is the biggest purchase you will make in your life, and it can be a bit intimidating, so you want people that can help walk you through the mortgage process and get you the best deal possible. That's what North Alabama Mortgage does, and they do it in Alabama, Tennessee, and Florida, from first-time purchases to refis, conventional, VA, FHA, and USDA loans. They have the solution at North Alabama Mortgage. Visit NorthAlabamaMortgage.com to learn more. That's NorthAlabamaMortgage.com. Tom Abraham here from my friend Brian Hamaker and his team at North Alabama Mortgage. Look, buying a home is the biggest purchase you will make in your life, and it can be a bit intimidating, so you want people that can help walk you through the mortgage process and get you the best deal possible. That's what North Alabama Mortgage does, and they do it in Alabama, Tennessee, and Florida, from first-time purchases to refis, conventional, VA, FHA, and USDA loans. They have the solution at North Alabama Mortgage. Visit NorthAlabamaMortgage.com to learn more. That's NorthAlabamaMortgage.com.
Geico presents a voicemail from your friend, Electricity.
Hey, it's me, Electricity, so I'll keep this short. Get it? Never mind. Anyway, I just want to make sure you're not, still mad at me about that electrical fire in your kitchen. I mean, obviously you're not, but I'm just checking to make sure. It's no big deal if you are. It's not like you're asking me to pay for the damage. Right?
Electricity won't pay for an electrical fire. Luckily, the Geico Insurance Agency makes getting coverage a snap. Visit geico.com to see how affordable renter's insurance can be.
These days, saving time is important, and saving money is even more so. That's where Eagle Masonry and Insulation comes in. Over the years, Eagle has expanded their services to meet the needs of folks like you in our area. If your home needs updating or you have some projects that you just haven't gotten to, Eagle can help. They install shower doors, mirrors, shelving, blinds, bath hardware, and lots more. Call Eagle Masonry and Insulation today at 256-755-1556. Eagle saves you time, and Eagle saves you money.
Welcome back to the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. I am D-Squared, Judy Armand, and today's topic, Alabama baseball. Rob Vaughn, the new head baseball coach at Alabama. Our next guest just had an exclusive one-on-one interview with him. He's the former editor of the Crimson White, now a fast riser in the media business, the beat writer for Bama Central, Fan Nation, covering the University of Alabama. He's with us on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline, and it's Austin Hannon. Austin, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good, Drew. How you doing?
Good, man. And first of all, kudos on getting a one-on-one with Rob Vaughn. I know you were with the team and saw you down there. I went through part of the postseason run in Hoover, and then, of course, with part of that, and then down at the regional, I know you were with them throughout the duration and through Wake Forest. Quite a remarkable run for a team that in early May was still trying to kind of find itself in a way and was on the bubble as far as postseason play, but they make an unbelievable run, and now we have a new era of Alabama baseball. Pretty surreal what's gone on in the last month and a half at Alabama.
Wow, right? I mean, I remember Jason Jackson just kept talking about, because I kept trying to ask him throughout the run, like, JJ, like, how are you guys doing this? How do you, pull yourself out of the mud like this team has? Have you really, started to notice, what this program's doing right now, how crazy this is? And, he would always just kind of say, there will be time to reflect after the season. There will be, we're still trying to win this thing right now. And now that the season's been over for, at least a few days here, I think we can kind of reflect and really just what a jaw-dropping effort from the 2023 team. They came out of nothing. I mean, absolute just despair. What in the world is going on? Our head coach is involved in some kind of betting scandal against us. And, at that point, I think a lot of fans and a lot of, people around us expected the team to implode, and it was going to be a cleaning of house, and it was going to be who's Greg Byrne finally going to bring in here. And then Jason Jackson takes those guys on a remarkable run, 2 wins away from reaching Omaha for the first time this century. And, just a tremendous job. And it's looking even greater now that Rob Vaughn's here. And, all things are looking, upwards in that direction.
No question. And what was your biggest surprise? I mean, we had heard several days ago that Rob Vaughn is potentially emerging as a candidate. But I thought and was pleasantly surprised that Jason Jackson, and I've been around Jason since he came to Alabama, so he's as good a guy. He's very genuine. just being in the press conferences around the team during this run, I felt like that, he certainly was honored to be considered as a head coaching candidate and was on the short list, but that maybe being a head coach wasn't his ultimate end game. But I thought it was just a tremendous boon for Rob Vaughn and Greg Byrne to be able to convince him to stay, because I think it's going to help this program in the short and the long term. But, I know you had your ear to the ground. How pleasantly surprised were you or were you surprised at all that Jason Jackson decided to stay and work for Rob Vaughn?
Yeah, well, initially I was thinking in my own brain that, maybe this guy really has a real shot at this thing. And maybe it was never that way. After talking to Greg Byrne, it didn't seem like he was as high maybe on that short list as myself and others thought. They interviewed 27 guys for the job. Jason was one of those guys, but I don't think he was ever that high on the list, which was a little surprising to me. But, I think maybe the fans, some of the fans are right that thought, hey, maybe that's a lazy hire. Maybe you don't want to do that when you're trying to build the program. Maybe this is just something that was great. But it's absolutely a terrific job by Byrne and by Rob Vaughn for keeping him on staff. I think even based on what he just showed over the last, month or so, some schools were definitely going to call about him being their head coach. And not SEC schools, not maybe ACC schools, but, the Florida Atlantics, like where he was the pitching coach, the schools like that. I'm sure there were going to be some that were going to call him and say, hey, we've noticed what you did with these guys. Like, would you like to interview for our head coaching spot? So I think it was an absolutely remarkable job to, give him his raise, promote him to associate head coach, and kind of keep him as one of the cornerstones building this thing alongside Rob Vaughn. Yeah, no question. And I think it's going to help. But even since you had that conversation yesterday morning with Coach, there's already been roster movement. I'll be honest, I had some intel from Hoover about the Colby Shelton situation, so it didn't completely stun me when I read that he went into the transfer portal, because this is the world we live in. We saw what happened with Tommy White and Paul Skeens last year. When you have a freshman with that kind of ability, and Alabama, they're certainly trying to get their NIL game rolling, but there's other schools like the LSUs, like Texas. There are schools that are aggressive in the portal, Florida, and have some NIL rolling with baseball. So I wasn't stunned. And, of course, Bryce Evelyn, he was more of a defensive replacement kind of guy. Played some, but hadn't played a ton. I wasn't shocked by him going into the portal. But, I know you talked to Coach a little bit about the roster management and things of that nature. But your thoughts on Shelton going into the portal, and then and how Rob Vaughn's going to build this roster in year one? Yeah, I mean, from what we talked about yesterday morning, it didn't sound like he didn't think Colby Shelton was in the plan. So that's where, when you think of Colby Shelton and he's a freshman and, man, there's all these giant schools and he's now the head coach that recruited him is not here anymore. Like, it's not shocking on paper, but, I mean, Rob Vaughn was literally talking about his plans with Colby Shelton, some of them at least, yesterday. So I don't think that it was something that he expected necessarily. And I don't think it's something that is great for this program. I think it's a humongous loss, Drew. I think it's a colossal loss. I mean, this is a guy that hit 25 home runs in his freshman year. If he does that for 2 more years, he's by far and away the home run leader all time in the history of Alabama baseball. So, I mean, this is a guy that has unlimited potential. His other players, Jim Jarvis, Drew Williamson, raved about him, saying that he's like one of the craziest things they've ever seen, just because of what he's doing at the age he's doing it at. And, it's not that surprising that a guy like him wants to say, hey, I mean, there's the Floridas, there's the LSUs, there's the Vanderbilts of the world that can offer me probably a pretty good amount of money for the next 2 years. And I can go play at a level where I don't really have to restart with a new coach. I can, jump on board with a coach that maybe recruited me out of high school, like, O'Sullivan probably 100% did at Florida, when I think it was a surprise. I mean, he's a Florida kid, and he decided to come to Alabama with Brad Bohannon. And I would not be shocked at all to see him go to Gainesville. They've definitely got a good collective thing going there. They've got a great baseball program that might as well win the national championship this year. But it's a big, big loss for this program, because I think that, this is the guy that they were really going to be building around over the next 2 years. And now, he's gone just like that.
Well, we'll see. Certainly, I'm sure he hasn't chosen another school. Is the likelihood of him returning high? Probably not. But there are a lot of baseball players out there. Alabama lost Zane Denton and plugged in Colby Shelton, and quite frankly, he had better numbers than Zane. I know Zane's had some big hits in the postseason, and Tennessee got to Omaha, but Colby had better numbers across the board. So we'll see what happens. What did you get from the conversation staff-wise? I know he has his pitching coach in place now in Jason Jackson. When's the rest of the staff going to come together, and could he retain some more guys from this staff that he inherited?
Yeah, he mentioned a little bit that him and JJ were going to sit down yesterday and kind of start figuring out what they wanted to do. Whether that's staff, whether that's players, whether that's going out in the portal and recruiting guys. Which, let's be fair, I mean, that's absolutely going to be in play. I mean, you can, in the same day, you can lose Colby Shelton. You can also go out and get a guy from another school, like a Colby Shelton, but from a different school. I mean, so it goes both ways, and him and Jason are going to get out there on the recruiting trail, I'm sure, really soon, and start building this roster for the first year. And look, he said it multiple times. He said it to me. This is not, a Brad Bohannon job where he's going to have to come in here and absolutely reset everything, clear everything out, and kind of start this thing over. This is a team that just was 2 wins away from Omaha that he's walking into. And it's usually, you don't get a new head coach after you've had such success. But with the situation Alabama had and the job being open, he's now walking into a great situation. And I think that's a big reason that he decided to leave Maryland. And this is a guy that he told me he put his roots down there. He lived 11 years there. Both of his kids were born there. So it was going to take something special for him to, just get up and leave College Park, Maryland like that. And it's obvious that a job like this was one that he's talking about. This is a job that you can kind of come in and have success year one, it's going to look like, and, build off of it. And you never know. 2 or 3 years, this team could be right back there in the Super Regionals looking for Omaha again.
And what's interesting, and this is what makes my head spin, I'm still trying to figure out who all has COVID eligibility left. I mean, have you figured that out yet? Because I know, of course, all these dudes are eligible for the draft, the upperclassmen. We know that. And I'm going to ask you about that in a second. But what guys have the ability to come back? Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's the fifth-year guys that it gets so confusing, and it'll be so great once these seniors and these grad students finally run out. We won't have to go through this whole thing again. God willing, we don't have another pandemic. But your Drew Williamsons of the world, they're done. He started in 2019. He had 5 years. That included the COVID year. That included a graduate student year. And so he's gone. Technically, Jim Jarvis can come back.
Yes, that's what I've heard.
He's played 4 straight up years at Alabama, but he does have that COVID year. I don't expect him, so I don't want anybody to think that Jim Jarvis is coming back. From what all I've heard from him, from the interviews, from the communication staff, it's not sounding like Jim Jarvis will return. But there's a lot of guys we've got the William Haminer. He's got a year of eligibility left. What's he going to do? In my brain, I've always thought it would make sense that hey, maybe it didn't work out at Alabama. Obviously, he had a great start to his career here and kind of has found the bench over the last couple of years. A guy from Tuscaloosa that maybe play at Stanford, maybe play at UAB. He does still have a year of eligibility. I tweeted out yesterday that Furtado, Pinckney, and Hitt are all in the draft combine. Expecting Pinckney and Hitt to leave. I think Furtado is an interesting one because at first he was a guy that maybe wasn't your best arm, but I think down the stretch of the season you saw that start in Hoover against Kentucky, and then really a pretty solid relief appearance against Wake Forest. In that second game that was a beatdown, he wasn't actually that bad on the mound. So that's an interesting name to keep an eye on. I would think Hitt and Pinckney are going to be drafted pretty high, and so they will probably be gone.
Yeah, that's what's so interesting about the draft now. Years ago, Austin, if you tore your arm up or you had a Tommy John, it usually affected your draft status, and you would probably return. Now it doesn't even matter. We saw it with Connor Prelip last year. You're still hearing. I've still heard Hitt could go in the top 3 rounds. And what's interesting too is, and I'm glad you reported it on your Twitter account. I was told, I guess it's in its second year, but now they do have this MLB combine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So different, right? I had a couple people reply and kind of say, I didn't even realize there was a combine. What does this mean? Yeah, it's the second year, I think, of it.
Yeah.
Grayson Hitt, that's not really a surprise. I mean, he was a great arm here. Obviously, the injury happens. He didn't get to really start in the back half of the season. But, yeah, he's a guy that organizations really want. I mean, anytime you can get a starting left-handed pitcher that throws like he does, it doesn't matter if they had Tommy John. They're going to be high on the list. So it's interesting you mentioned that the Tommy John thing. Yeah, I mean, we saw with Kumar Rocker a couple times when the Mets pulled out, and then he ends up going back into the draft and gets drafted high again. And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think Grayson Hitt's a guy that's going to be drafted pretty high. It kind of stinks because you feel like if you could have him and Luke Holman back next year, you would have quite the pitching staff in Tuscaloosa, especially on Friday and Saturday night. But it's not looking like Hitt will return. It is looking like to me that Luke Holman will return from what people have told me. So I think Alabama fans should be looking forward to that. That's the guy that really became the ace this year and pitched great against Wake Forest. When you look back at it, I mean, he gave up a few runs, but after you watch the second game when they scored 22 runs and see what they were, capable of on that field, then Luke Holman's performance looks a lot better.
Well, and I think they could even get a guy like Dominic Tomez back, and I've even been told Garrett McMillan has another year. Is that true?
Yeah, he does, I think. And McMillan is so interesting because you just felt like last year was going to be his last year, right? And then he gets drafted, I think, in the 16th, 15th round, and he thinks about it. He decides to come back for one more, and then I'm talking to him all year about, hey, is it like what's it feel like to do this like in your last start against Auburn and this and that, and he still does have a year of eligibility, and I think for him it's going to depend on where he gets drafted this year, which with the year added onto his age, and now maybe the results weren't exactly what he wanted this year, he might drop a little bit, which kind of opens the door for a return, but. Kind of like similar to Jarvis. I mean, at some point, guys might just say, "Hey, I'm just going to go try my luck in the MLB." I don't think Jim Jarvis is going to be a guy that's drafted super high, but at some point, I think you kind of reach your potential at this level, and you kind of want to go see what you can do in high A and double A, and try to get your name out there. And I think McMillan's in the same camp as that. There's a chance he could return, but I would probably see him, maybe trying to go the professional route at this point.
Well, the draft is just going to be interesting to see. And finally, your overall impression of Coach Vaughn. And I was really impressed with the press conference and what he said about relationship building, because that's going to go a long way. He and JJ kind of tag teaming to get this roster built.
Yeah, I mean, super impressive. You nailed it. I think just about it was a unanimous reaction to that 16 or 17-minute introduction just the other day at Mount Moore. I mean, he hit all the spots. He had a little bit of emotion. He hit all the high points that you want to kind of pull a fan base together and have these people believe in you. And he did that even more so when I got to talk to him yesterday. I mean, we kind of went through his whole, baseball life and how he got here and what the plans are. And he kind of just nailed all the answers, Drew. I mean, he seems like the right guy for the job. And this is coming from a person in me that, I wasn't so on board with the new hire. I was kind of in the camp that maybe Jason Jackson deserves a 1 or 2 year contract, a shot at this thing, just based off what he did. And I've been pleasantly surprised so far with Rob Vaughn. And I think that looking back at it now that you were able to retain Jackson and get Vaughn, that this was absolutely the right move by Greg Byrne. And I'm excited to see it play out because, so many people have said, I mean, this is a program that's, been looking for success, been looking for what happened this last, month or so for a long time. And now that it kind of, the fan base finally got kind of a feel for it, and it seems like the right people are in place, this could be a good thing that's coming.
No doubt. Well, Austin, we appreciate it. Let everybody know how to connect with you. I know you just posted it about 30 minutes ago, and to go read that interview with Rob Vaughn. Yeah, so obviously Drew mentioned I write for BamaCentral.com, so that's the first place to go. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, that'll be Austin Hannon _. So that's it. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Absolutely, Drew. Talk to you soon. That's Austin Hannon. We're going to go on a break and quickly wrap up this Thursday edition of the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio.
The Blitz has been called.
No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.
A wise man once said, if you take care of old folks and children, everything in the middle will take care of itself.
Hi, I'm Danny Aldridge, lawyer in Alabama and Tennessee. In the next 20 years, the number of those folks over 65 years of age will more than double. In our golden years, the most important goal is to be treated with dignity and have control over doing what makes you grateful with those you love. At the Aldridge Law Firm and the Legal Town Center, we're dedicated to help you with these goals, and we'll be there when life throws you those inevitable curveballs. Let us assist you with your legal needs, whatever they may be or become. You may reach us by phone at 256-534-3188 or online with Dan at danaldridgelaw.com. Just remember, we're here to help. Whether it's personal injury, wrongful death, fraud and cheat, or estate planning made complete, we're here to help.
Welcome back as we are wrapping it up here. Nice interview with Austin Hannon. Big thanks. Go check out his interview with the new head coach, Rob Vaughn. Don't forget the afternoon blitz with the Bandyman, Dave Lowry, Captain Cool, John Abraham from 2 to 4. Everybody, enjoy that mild weather out there, and we'll talk to you tomorrow at 9 a.m. and wrap up another week of the Recruiting Blitz. Have a great day, everyone.